Remember MythBusters? Throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, MythBusters was one of the most popular science-based shows in the entire world.
Mythbusters was the absolute bomb when you were a kid. If you're currently 30, 35ish, or maybe even 40, you know what I'm talking about. When you were a kid, Mythbusters was the prime show on Discovery that you wanted to watch always because it was so good. You only did a couple of things on TV as a kid. It's way different now than it was back then. You would watch either Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. Some people had access to Fox Kids and Jetix, and there were two choices. Either you buy cable television, or at the time, it was extremely easy to get bootleg cable television, which cost only a fraction and was permanent. And that was great. The smart parents always got the boxes that hacked the television or did whatever they were supposed to do, and you could watch it for free. Admittedly, man, those were the days. That's why you found MythBusters, because Discovery was one of those primetime channels. For me personally, it was Fox Kids, later Jetix, Cartoon Network, and MythBusters. And you know what the best part about bootleg TV was? There was no way to get rid of the porn channels. After 11, the porn channels started. And some genius, some absolute genius, had the brightest idea of all to make that the kids' TV channel by default turns into the adult porn channel after 11. So, yeah, until 11, it's cartoons. After 11, it's exploring yourself. What a time to be alive. Those were the days.
Every week, we got to see the cast put popular myths and urban legends to the test. Is it likely that the Alcatraz prison escape was successful?
Don't
If you
remember.
drink Diet Coke and instantly eat Mentos right after, would your stomach explode?
It didn't. Spoiler alert. They would not have shown if it did.
And most importantly, could Jack and Rose have shared a door in Titanic?
There were so many legendary episodes at the time. Because TV was much more simpler. We didn't have access to this mind melting arsenal of everything. And yeah, the question of Titanic, considering it was aired pretty much every single year by at least a dozen TV stations, it was a legitimate question. Turns out, not really. By normal circumstances, if you don't experiment and try hard, that's not happening. But there was a possibility, so Jack kinda died for no reason at the end of days. And they had other great episodes also. For example, one of my favorite was when they just tried to drop toast from a big side to see if all the toast always drops with the buttery side down. Turns out, kinda does most of the time. Well, not most of the time. It was 50 something percent. It was great.
Myths like these kept many of us addicted to the show for several years. But out of nowhere in late 2015, the Mythbusters announced that the longest running show on the Discovery Channel was coming to an end in 2016. For most of us,
Sad.
this was a complete surprise given that the show was still as entertaining as
Let's face it, most of us kinda stopped watching television roughly, I don't know, 10 years ago or something when the internet became just
ever.
so simpler and so easier and so much more accessible.
Since then, we've seen multiple spin-offs emerge, including Mythbusters The Search,
Never
My
seen.
Rabbit Project,
Nope.
Mythbusters Jr., and Motor
Nope.
Mythbusters.
Nope.
While some of these were great
The only good show now on Discovery, if you watch it, is Deadliest Catch, and I'm pretty sure that's literally kinda it.
in their own right, it was of course never as good as the original. So, what happened to Mythbusters, and why was the show cancelled?
People didn't watch it, obviously. People grew up. There were other activities that you needed to do. Not everyone, sadly, could continue being a NEET.
While it may seem like Mythbusters ended abruptly, there was actually a slew of fundamental issues that plagued the team for years. One of these issues was the chemistry between the team members themselves, specifically Adam and Jamie.
They didn't
Now,
like each
this
other too
might
much.
come as a surprise to many of you, but Adam and Jamie aren't actually friends.
There was an interview a long time ago. I think even when the time when I still was watching this, they said that they're not really on the best terms, But they're pretty professional, so they can, so you know, they kind of put their differences aside for work, so it's kind of fine.
And this isn't speculation or some sort of fan theory. Both of them have actually been extremely transparent about how they don't actually get along in real life.
Yeah.
Adam said, quote, "We don't get along very well together on a personal
But if you're a professional, then you just put it aside for work.
level. In the 25 years that we've known each other, we've never had dinner alone together." Similarly, when asked if it would be an exaggeration to say that Jamie didn't really like Adam, Jamie replied, "No, we certainly had respect for each other, but we really weren't friends." Considering this,
There's nothing bad, by the way, about that. There's nothing wrong with that in particular. Not a big deal. You don't need to be friends with all your colleagues and shit. Honestly, that is the wrong approach. If you get sucked into the idea that your work life is your second family and things, you're only gonna get hurt sooner or later.
extremely impressive that this duo was able to sustain such a productive professional relationship for so long. But if it was up to them, they wouldn't voluntarily work with each other. In other words, the opportunity to work together didn't keep them on the show by any means. They each had their own independent reasons to do the show, and
But they did work together really good. In the show, you never really got the feeling that they hate each other or anything like that. They were friendly and everything. It seemed like they have a decent relationship at the bare minimum.
when those reasons dissolved, they didn't hesitate to split ways. If you're wondering about the relationship between
Do I need to talk about? Was her name Carrie? When she popped up, everyone saw the memes. Everyone knows what's up. Today, boys, we're testing the pull-out method, and she's smiling and being happy about. Well, obviously, she got pregnant later on. The memes never stopped, boys. It was glorious. I saw a little bit of them, but after that, I kind of stopped watching, which I assume is the situation for most people. Because Discovery is now something, I don't know, you watch in the background if you have a TV without internet. And in that case, where did you go wrong in your life?
Tori, Carrie, and Grant, these guys were basically the exact opposite of Adam and Jamie. They got along extremely well. In fact, here's what Grant had to say about it. "The three of us, you, Tori, and I, we are beyond friends. We are siblings. We shared a long, wild
Oh, it was Tori, not Carrie. I think I said Carrie.
adventure learning from each other the whole way. Our cameraman nicknamed us technical, practical, and logical because we were so different, but we could solve any problem together. Clearly, this trio liked working with each other, but that wasn't enough to deter them from leaving the show when the time came either.
I mean, if I had to work with Carrie, I would also be extremely friendly, if you know what I'm saying. Like, damn, let's face it, she is kind of beyond hot. Damn, son.
You see, interest in Mythbusters was slowly declining over the years. Now, I know it makes a lot of you guys upset when I say things like this, because yes, even after the decline, Mythbusters was still super popular. However,
Yeah, it was still popular. They still did interesting shit. But there's a difference between watching TV when you're an adult and watching TV when you're a kid. And Mythbusters did come at the exact best time possible for it to emerge. In the time when no one did stuff like that. In the time when we didn't see huge special effects and an episode of Eggs didn't cost $1 million billion.
when you're constantly trying to produce bigger seasons with bigger myths and bigger budgets, it's not really sustainable when viewership and ratings are declining. And according to the data, the decline was pretty clear.
Oh.
Take a look at Google Trends, for example. The search data says that interest in Mythbusters peaked between 2006 and
2006 and 2000. What is he gonna say?
2008.
8? What do you fuck? Well, yeah, I guess that's the most peak it has ever been constantly. But this, for some reason, was a new peak. Interesting.
There were two singular peaks in 2009 and 2011, but for the most part, the underlying decline continued. And
Yeah.
by the time the show ended, it was only pulling in 20 to 30% of the interest that it was pulling in during its peak. And if you don't believe Google, just listen to Adam himself describe the issue.
So Mythbusters was on for 14 years.
That's a long
Everything
time.
in the world has its own bell curve. So we signed that contract when our ratings were at their absolute peak. And then slowly over the next 5 years, they started their slide.
So a thing about these contracts is you don't get signed to do like X thing usually. You get signed for a season, or sometimes you get signed to do multiple seasons at a time. And if Hollywood Discovery or whoever holds the contract breaks that, you pretty much get paid no matter what. So there's no reason to not really make the episodes in a lot of cases. So that's a big thing. This pretty much happened with Lost. Lost was in the limbo forever because the showrunners wanted to end it, but the network did not want to end it. So they bought like 2 seasons plus of Lost, and then the showrunners were scratching their heads. Admittedly, this didn't happen with MythBusters, but yeah, that's how it happens. They probably were at the top of their peak, and the network just said, "Yeah, now let's sign this 5-year contract."
They still was respectable ratings by the end, but that slide happened.
So, while Mythbusters was still quite popular and adored by its superfans, the average viewer was starting to tune out. And this makes sense given that the Mythbusters had already
That's the thing about the curving bullet. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
tested the most popular myths. There's only so many Jack and Rose scenes and Walter White scenes that everyone knows.
Did they do that? Did they test that?
Sooner or later, you're gonna have to tackle less popular myths that aren't as appealing to the general audience. And eventually, this led to declining ratings, which took a toll on the show.
It's kind of hard to believe that would be the situation, considering they literally had episodes that blew up and everyone loved about dropping toast from a 2-story building to see on what side does it land. You know, just the age has changed. People want more, explosions, Michael Bay type of shit. That's pretty much it.
One of the first shortfalls that was extremely evident to viewers was what happened to Tori, Grant, and Carrie. In 2014, it was announced that the B cast would be eliminated and that the show would simply focus on Adam and Jamie. According to the producers, what Grant, Carrie, and Tori were asking for was unreasonable. We never really got a solid explanation as to what exactly they asked for or why negotiations
I
didn't
don't
end up
remember
fruitful.
this.
At first, there was some speculation that
I do remember this part though. And this was the pullout. This was what. This is the pullout method test.
this trio might have grown some resentment for each other just like Adam and Jamie. But they would soon turn around and star in the White Rabbit project together. So
No idea
this
what
likely
that was.
wasn't the case.
Admittedly, I have never had a Netflix subscription because I'm not a retard.
The more likely scenario is that the trio wanted to maintain their compensation or increase it. And given that viewership was declining, this simply wasn't feasible. Something else to note is that it seems like the trio did not agree with the direction that the producers were taking Mythbusters. Instead of myths being at the center of each episode, it felt like the producers wanted more explosions and theatrics. They probably thought that this would help retain viewers,
Michael Bay.
but it kind of just caused the show to lose its original appeal. Once Carrie, Grant,
Well, if you're blowing up shit every episode, it kind of gets boring after a couple of episodes. The original Mythbusters did something different every time. Then they did an explosion, then they did something simple. Then they just blew up a balloon with nothing but, air, and it was glorious. If you do the one thing constantly, people are gonna get bored. It is what it is.
and Tori were removed from the show, ratings just declined even faster. While some viewers were indifferent to the change, most viewers were upset that they were cut from the show.
Yeah, they were
They
good.
felt that the trio gave a healthy break from the antics of Adam and Jamie. Also, Carrie was the only woman that was left on the show. And given that STEM fields are generally skewed towards men, many young girls looked up to Carrie. But unfortunately, this didn't last. Moving on to the last 2 seasons of Mythbusters, given that the cast was cut in half, the number of myths tested per show was also cut in half. Each episode only covered 2 myths instead of 3 or 4 like before. On the bright side, this allowed the producers to spend more time showing the engineering behind each project. Adam and Jamie also had more time to explain the science behind each experiment. While these facets were welcomed by superfans, to the
I don't think people are interested too much in the science. If people are interested in the science, they watch, a literal science YouTube channel, not actually Discovery or Mythbusters, vaguely explain what you're gonna do, and then do it in style. That's the key to their success, I think.
Average viewer, this likely just felt slower paced and not as exciting. And soon enough, Adam and Jamie's 5-year contract was coming to an end as well, meaning that it was time to renegotiate. Adam was actually super transparent about this, stating that he simply wasn't willing to do the show for less compensation.
Do you keep the show going? Well, Discovery's not going to want to pay us more to keep on doing the show. And frankly, after 14 years, and I'm 50 now, I'm tired. I'm definitely not going to do the show for less.
And given that Discovery wasn't willing to allocate a bigger budget, the only option was to shut it down. The silver lining is that Discovery let Jamie and Adam end the show on their terms. They were allowed to call it a final season, and they were able to test some of the biggest myths yet. But the best part was that they were able to invite Carrie, Tori, and Grant to do a wrap-up episode. This conclusion was extremely well received by the fans, given...
The hell is this? Oh, it's the ratings, yeah. So, where's the last season 14? 7.6. Season 1, 7.4. Wow. Oh no, the last season is 15, 4.1. Jesus. Wow. Talk about actually objectively rating shit.
That it was the highest rated MythBusters episode of all time. So while it was a shame that MythBusters came to an end earlier than people wanted, it's nice that the show at least got the ending that it deserved. In terms of what the MythBusters are up to today, they've all gone down their own paths. Starting with Adam, while he left MythBusters, he never really...
Wait, is Carrie a super hot MILF now? There's potential, boys.
Their own paths. Starting with Adam, while he left MythBusters, he never really gave up the show business. He went on to host 2 more shows called MythBusters Jr. and Savage Builds. Given the name MythBusters Jr., I don't think he'd be
Oh, wait, I remember something about this crap. He was alone and that was boring. I think I saw like 1 episode and it was like, oh, yeah, this ain't it.
Here that had a similar premise to the original show. Instead of having adults test these myths, however, we had teenagers. And Adam was basically their mentor, leading them through the design, assembly, and testing processes. As for Savage Builds, this show was focused on new inventions and restoration projects. Adam collaborated with industry experts and friends to make things like the Iron Man suit and the Wheel of Death. Savage Builds actually performed quite well. However, both of these shows were cancelled after just 1 season.
I don't know, does Discovery do well in general nowadays? Like, who watches TV in general? Everything's declining without question. Obviously online beats TV.
Wasn't just involved in TV shows either. He also had a cameo in 2048, Nowhere to Run, and he published a book called Every Tool is a Hammer, Life is What You Make It. Likely his most significant project over the...
That does not sound like a successful book, I'm not gonna lie. Hey, if you make a book and it's not a New York bestseller or whatever bestseller, you fucking failed. Because every book nowadays is a bestseller somewhere, so if you don't have that title, you kind of failed pretty hard, not gonna lie.
For the past several years, however, is his YouTube channel. Adam became the face of the YouTube channel Tested, and they even renamed the channel to Adam Savage's Tested. The channel has nearly 6 million subscribers, and they post
I had no idea that this exists.
a video almost every day about science and building.
Doesn't look too hot though. 6 million subs, and yeah, that's not looking real hot there, Chief.
Anyway, moving on to Jamie, his life after MythBusters hasn't been nearly as eventful. He has more or less left the show business and is mainly focused on personal projects. For example, he built a tank that's specifically designed for firefighting. He also received an honorary doctorate in technology from Lappeenranta University of Technology in 2017. This was actually his 3rd...
Honorary kind of means nothing. You know, presidents receive honorary, you know, Yale participation trophies and shit like that constantly. The fact that you receive an honorary something doesn't mean anything. It just means you're famous.
Honorary doctorate. He had previously received one from Villanova University and the University of Twente. More recently, he was appointed as a professor at Lund University in November of 2021. This was
Okay, that's a little bit different, but if you read the headline there, you see it's of Finland, and no one cares about Finland. Finland's the, like, magical place that no one knows really exists, but people claim to be from Finland. It makes no sense.
Of 2021. This was a 5-year contract, so this is probably where I'll spend the majority of his time in the coming years. Moving on to Tori, he's basically just jumped from one show to another. Shortly after MythBusters ended, he started hosting a show called The Thrill Factor with Carrie. The show focuses on the science and engineering behind roller coasters and amusement park rides and explains why certain attractions are so thrilling. After Thrill Factor, Tori went on to host White Rabbit Project with, of course, Carrie and Grant. He took a few years off from the show business after White Rabbit Project, but he eventually returned in 2019 with The Great Escapists. Since then, he's also appeared on The Explosion Show and The Jackass Forever.
No idea of any of this except Jackass Forever, and if he's here, I don't even fucking recognize him? Is that him?
So, things haven't changed all that much for Tori. The same can be said about Carrie as well. She of course also hosted Thrill Factor and White Rabbit Project, but she's done a few things on her own as well. For example, she hosted Crash Test World. This show focuses on the tech capitals of the world and how these various cities are helping build our future. Aside from starring in these shows, Carrie also helped found an...
Yeah, that does sound extremely Discovery Channel, not gonna lie. But are people interested in that? No. All of these things have one season for a reason, and that reason is not because they're just bad, it's just because no one cares. No one puts on Discovery. The only person I know watches Discovery watches it because they want background for something else they're doing in the computer, and that's pretty much it.
Educational streaming service called Explore Media. The streaming service is still super new, so we'll have to see how it plays out.
Probably.
And finally, last but definitely not least, we have Grant. After MythBusters and White Rabbit Project, Grant went on to host the second season of Home of the Future. As the name suggests, this show focuses on futuristic homes filled with the newest tech. Grant also had a cameo in the TV movie Sharknado 3.
Seriously?
Grant hasn't just been working on the front end of movies and TV shows either.
Wait. Is this the Young Turks, or am I insane? They don't look like... D-U-T. No way.
He also spent a lot of time on the back end as well. For example, in 2017, he consulted with Disney for 6 months to help them build better animatronics. While things were going pretty good for Grant career-wise, he would unfortunately be hit with an intracranial aneurysm in July.
What? I had absolutely no idea. Oh my god.
2020, which took his life. He was only 49 years old at the time, which leaves him...
Oh, he was actually that old? Fuck, this dude looked young as fuck always. But admittedly, Jamie and everyone else also look young, except Tori, who now looks like an absolute MILF.
The most tragic ending.
Sad.
While it's already been several years since MythBusters ended, I'd be willing to bet that the effect of MythBusters will live on for decades. MythBusters inspired millions of kids and teenagers to pursue careers in science and engineering.
MythBusters inspired a million kids to potentially blow off their fingers because, let's be real, like, do you think that anyone's doing anything smart? No, we're trying to blow up shit or burn shit, and that's what we did. Not technically only because of MythBusters, we were completely insane as children, so it is what it is. But MythBusters probably helped.
And who knows what these young minds will come up with in the coming decades. In terms of the show itself ending, it really just came down to declining viewership and a limited budget. But honestly, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. More times than not, we see shows go on for way too long. MythBusters was able to end off at a time where viewers still wanted more, which is why all of us still remember it in such a positive light even after all these years. And I'm not sure if any other ending could have created such a lasting effect, but that's just what I think. Did you watch MythBusters growing up? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you're glad that MythBusters ended off strong. And
I wonder actually who didn't watch MythBusters here. Who's like a 45-year-old fucking dude who did not watch... No, you're probably dead now anyway, so I guess you can't really even comment, huh? But anyway, that's it. MythBusters was an absolutely legendary thing. What the fuck? Logical answered Hindi. Oh, Hindi. Wow. Everyone's trying to get on that Hindu market because... Who took over PewDiePie T-Series? What is T-Series? Well, just a random Indian channel that every Indian who created the YouTube account got subscribed to for no reason automatically. Fucking insanity. But anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Bye bye.